All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, after countless interviews with potential candidates, as well as being turned down more than once, the Philadelphia Eagles have themselves a new offensive coordinator in the form of Sean Mannion. Now, the Eagles hired Mannion after he spent the last 2 years on Matt LaFleur's staff as an offensive assistant in 2024 for the Green Bay Packers and then serving as their quarterbacks coach this past season. But Mannion has never been a play caller, which is going to be a question mark for him as he embarks on being the OC for this Eagles offense. The guy that Mannion replaced in Philadelphia, Kevin Patullo, never called plays prior to last season, and things never worked out for him there. But this only adds to the questions for the Eagles, as this has been a strange offseason so far in the city of brotherly love. Mannion's hiring, okay, is going to make him rather the fifth different offensive coordinator that the Eagles have had in the last 5 years. Now, all of it's as far as the guys being one and done, it's not like they've all been bad per se. Two of those offensive coordinators would leave to become head coaches in the NFL after helping the Eagles get to the Super Bowl. And of course, in Kellen Moore's case, after the 2024 season, he helped the Eagles win a championship. But why were the Eagles struggling to fill this position this offseason? That's the bigger question because they struggled to fill this position and then they had to settle, in my opinion, for Sean Mannion. It really just makes you wonder, okay, as this team is a year removed from winning the Super Bowl, why, while they are littered with so much talent on offense, you think back, the Eagles did reach out to both Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll this offseason, both previously or recently fired head coaches, but they also had past lives as successful offensive coordinators in the NFL. McDaniel would spurn the Eagles to join Jim Harbaugh and the Los Angeles Chargers, while Brian Daboll is heading to Nashville to become the new head coach of the pardon me, the new offensive coordinator rather of the Tennessee Titans. And then you've got the Nick Sirianni factor because there were reports of Nick Sirianni butting in. Of course, we knew that he took play calling duties away at some point this season from Kevin Patullo, I do believe. But nonetheless, is Nick Sirianni going to allow the next OC, being Sean Mannion, to do his job? Because first things first, the Eagles need to get back to running the football. That is the strength of this team, okay? And you look at each year that they got to the Super Bowl, they had a strong running game. We saw them in 2024. Saquon Barkley, if he wanted to, he could have broken the NFL's regular season rushing record, a single season rushing record, rather. He rushed for more than 2,000 yards in 2024. Did not come together for him in 2025. And I think that has to once again become a strength for this Eagles team. They were 18th in rushing last year on Eagles like, okay. You look at the Jalen Hurts factor. What can the Eagles continue to get from their Super Bowl MVP at quarterback? I'll say this about Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not a guy, in my opinion, that is going to put a team on his back, okay, per se. But Jalen Hurts is still and still can be a very efficient and very quality quarterback in the National Football League. On the flip side, every single year, Jalen Hurts is getting himself a new offensive coordinator. I would really like to see what could happen for Jalen Hurts if he actually had an offensive coordinator for multiple years. Just saying, you've got the AJ Brown factor at wide receiver. Will Philadelphia's talented wide receiver be on the same page with his new offensive coordinator? That's going to be the $1 million question. The other thing for me is, will Philadelphia look to trade AJ Brown this offseason? I think that happens. Okay, that's just my 2 cents right there. You look at the Eagles, one of the most talented teams in the National Football League. Make no mistake about it. but they also have their issues at times. It's one of those where we saw things come together for Philly in 2022 when they got to the Super Bowl. They just never clicked in 2023, and they were one and done in the postseason. We saw it come together for Philadelphia in 2024, never clicked this past season. You know, it was just one of those things all season long. The Philadelphia Eagles just never appeared to be right. For me, you look at it, the ink is really yet to dry on Sean Mannion's deal with the Eagles, but he's already in the hot seat because being the offensive coordinator for the Eagles, to me, is one of the toughest jobs in the National Football League due to the expectations for this team, as well as the egos that he's going to have to deal with, okay, and satisfy both coaches and players. So it does not help with all of that said for Sean Mannion that he is walking into this scenario without any previous play calling experience. I really want to see, I mean, because make no mistake about it, the Eagles consistently are one of the most successful teams at the NFL draft. They know how to make things work in free agency under the guidance of Howie Roseman. I think Philadelphia is definitely going to roll up their sleeves and try to attack this running game, meaning getting back to what they do best. So that's a big thing for me this offseason. Another thing for me is if you're going to hire somebody to cook, you got to let them cook. And if Sean Mannion is going to be your offensive coordinator, you've got to allow him to call the plays and see things in his vision. But again, like I said, there's a lot of egos to satisfy on that Philadelphia offense. But nonetheless, you would think that this Eagles OC position would be coveted in and around the National Football League, and they could get themselves a big name to fill that position. It's kind of like, you know, when they got Kellen Moore for 2024, I expected them to cook, especially after they went out there and got Saquon Barkley. Sean Mannion doesn't move the needle, and I think the fact that if you're Philly, you couldn't get a Mike McDaniel or you couldn't get a Brian Daboll in there, I think that is very telling. But I still want to see what this Eagles, the rest of their offseason is going to look like. So again, Sean Mannion as the Eagles offensive coordinator really doesn't push the needle. But nonetheless, let's see what the rest of this offseason is going to look like for the Birds. But folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. And as always, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, definitely check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.